Welcome to Warhammer Warscroll Review. I'm the Twin Coot, and in this video we'll be taking a look at the Gloomspite Gitz unit, the Boingrot Bounderz. I have to say a bunch of silly words in this one, aren't I?
Warscroll Review.
I told you I wouldn't forget about Age of Sigmar since setting the goal of going through Adeptus Mechanicus units, and here we are. Gloomspite Gitz have a lot of new options and units. Let's check out one of the cooler ones first, the Boingrot Bounderz. Starting with their movement, we have a random value, common for squigs but uncommon for just about anything else. The unit moves 2d6 inches. Not only this, but the unit flies. An interesting addition for the squigs, but it makes sense for these hoppity little creatures. I tend to not like random characteristics, but squigs do have some ways to mitigate this role. The problem is, sometimes you will need to move a certain distance, and you just won't roll it. A random movement characteristic makes the units somewhat unreliable on their own. When using the models, play them like they are swift infantry that will sometimes get a boost to movement. If you use them expecting to move as fast as cavalry, they will likely be disappointing. Bottom line, remember that the average roll puts them at a 7-inch movement. Defensively, these little dudes are tanks compared to other Grot units. 2 wounds, 4+ save, and bravery 5. Not bad for a Grot unit, but most armies would be scared to leave the house with those defensive stats. Good thing we aren't looking at this war scroll for its durability. We want to see how well this unit pokes stuff, and with their 2 weapons, they will do just that. Both weapons offer 2 attacks that hit on 4s with Ren 1, damage 1, but the Poking Lance gets a few benefits over the Fang-filled Gob. The Lance has a range of 2 inches, but the Gob wounds on a 3+ instead of 4+. On the other hand, the unit is +1 to wound on the turn they charge, so this balances out. Good thing they don't have to choose though, because they always fight with both weapons. For cavalry models, their 32mm bases won't get in the way that much. But this will still block the Fang-filled Gobs from getting an extra rank in of attacks. In larger units, the lances will shine even brighter. The Boingrot Bounderz have another special rule that triggers on the charge. Pick a unit within 1 inch after the charge move, and roll a dice for each model in the Grot's unit. Each 4+ deals a mortal wound. A pretty decent way to deal mortals, just make sure you don't come up short on a bad movement or charge roll and get your charge yourself. The Boingrot Bounderz come in units of 5 and max out at 15. You're spending 100 points per set of 5, which makes this unit fairly cheap for the punch-up packs. The Gloomspite Gitz are known for their huge cheap units. The Bounderz are more or less their more elite unit. It's great to see them remain so cheap. The Squig Riders may be cavalry, but if you're expecting them to fly up the field and break the opponent, you might be disappointed just like most other cavalry units. Roll decently and stack some buffs, the Squigs will move fast enough to make it to the enemy's line turn 1 or 2. Roll poorly, and they could be sitting out for a while. This means at least 2 things. First is that the Boingrot Bounderz make excellent counterchargers. Plant them near a unit holding an objective or your magic or shooting units to await an enemy assault. The other thing is if you do plan on running the Bounderz up the field to charge head on, you'll need multiple units. Having redundancy puts less stress on a few 2d6 movement rolls. With the new Gloomspite Gitz book, our Squig Knights will be able to get some assistance from other units and abilities. First, let's discuss the Grot units that will offer synergies with our Boingrot Bounderz. Before I mention them, I will bring up the fact that our Rider have the Squig and MoonClan keywords, but not the Grot keyword. This makes us miss out on a few buffs in the Gitz book, but that's okay, Squigs still have some unique augments. First and foremost is the Loon Boss on Mangler Squig. The model's command ability can be used to give all Squig units wholly within 18 inches +1 to wound. This is pretty awesome and means on the charge, all the model's weapons will be wounding on 2s. Sneaky Snufflers are the next unit I will bring up. If you can manage to roll less than or equal to the number of models in the unit, you can add +1 attack to nearby MoonClan unit. Remember, the Bounders have their lance as well as the Squig's jaws. So this will be giving them an extra 2 attacks each for a total of 6 attacks per model. Other units of Snufflers can add more attacks on, but it becomes extremely dangerous as it will start dealing 2d6 mortal wounds for each successive augment. Almost definitely not worth it with our relatively low wound unit, but still an option in the most dire circumstances. To increase our Bounders' defenses, Gloomspite Gitz actually have a few options. Getting -1 to hit isn't all that hard. The Troggoth Hag, Shrewmancer, and Madcap Shaman all offer spells that can do this. The Gabapalooza character, Boggle Eye, can also offer some resilience in the form of a spell. If used on a friendly unit, it will make them immune to Battle Shock. A larger unit of Bounders will surely appreciate this, as their bravery is just so damn low. In the same vein as resilience, the Gitz have an interesting combo to try with Boingrot Bounderz. Zarbag and his crew have an interesting set of rules. Zarbag himself has a weird unique spell that can be used on an enemy within 3 inches of them. The enemy unit must make a retreat move. This can be used on a turn the Boingrot Bounderz are stuck in a combat with an enemy unit. Boingrots are much better on the charge, so this would force the enemy to pull out of combat just to be charged again by the Bounders. Zarbag's Gitz are also part of his selection, and they offer another small aura. Models within 2 inches of a netter from Zarbag's Gitz unit will be subject to -1 to hit. Your first reaction will probably be to scoff at keeping the Bounders 2 or 3 inches away from these little infantry models. And it's true that it'll be hard for these models to keep up with the Squig Riders, so it would be easier to include these when the Boingrot Bounderz are being used as a countercharge unit. With Zarbag and his Gitz interspersed through the Bounders unit, they should be triggering some nets as well as keeping Zarbag in 3 inches to make enemy pull out of combat. The last unit I want to mention will mitigate what I believe to be the Boingrot Bounderz' biggest weakness, their random movement characteristic. The Loon Boss on Cave Squig can use its command ability at the start of the movement phase to increase the movement of all Squig units within 12 inches. Affected models would receive a 3-inch boost to their speeds. Squigs tend to move 2d6 and Boingrot Bounderz are no different. This 3-inch increase would make their average move 10 inches, which is actually comparable to other cavalry units. Even in your worst case scenario, rolling 2 1s, the unit is moving as fast as most infantry units. The next unit synergy lies with Gloomspite Gitz's terrain piece called the Bad Moon Loon Shrine. Units within 12 inches will ignore battle shock tests, which is quite important. The bad part is the Moon Shrine goes in your territory and will thus be hard to influence the Bounders that have run up the field. The final war scroll the Boingrot Bounderz likes to pair with is a battalion. This one probably gives them the greatest benefit. The Squig Rider Stampede includes 2 to 3 Boingrot Bounderz and 0 to 1 Mangler Squigs. The units within the battalion can re-roll their move roll. Hallelujah! Something to seriously mitigate that movement characteristic. For only 140 points, you are making your Squigs significantly better. Plus you're getting an extra relic and CP. This battalion is basically an auto-include with Boingrot Bounderz, since you really should be taking 2 to 3 units of them anyway. So, quite a few synergies when it comes to the Gloomspite Gitz and the Boingrot Bounderz, but we still have to talk about Allegiance abilities. First to mention is the buff granted from being under the influence of the Bad Moon, a somewhat confusing battle trait that basically bestows some of the board with augments. If under the effects of the Bad Moon as a Squig, the unit can run and charge in the same turn, meaning the unit moves 3d6 then can charge. So really, the unit is moving a totally unreliable 5d6 inches. This is awesome, and on average, moving the unit 17 or 18 inches. Biggest advantage to this is being able to use at the double command ability. If the Squigs roll low, automatically change it to a 6 to give the Squigs an automatic 8-inch movement in the worst case scenario. Using this ability will give the Squigs an average 20-inch threat range, which is pretty solid. Next up is the lore of the Moon Clan, the Grot's own unique spell lore. There are two spells to mention, the Hand of Gork and the Squigler. There are two spells to mention, the Hand of Gork and Squigler. The Hand of Gork is a useful but common spell effect. Pick up one Squig unit wholly within 24 inches of the caster and redeploy them anywhere on the battlefield 9 inches or more from an enemy unit. This is a nice one and means you don't have to rely on their random movement quite as much. Instead of using the random movement to travel the length of the board before charging, just pick up and drop the unit close to your target. You could easily fail that 9-inch charge, but next turn the Boingrot Bounderz should be in range. Do make sure to have some other grot threat in the opponent's face the turn you redeploy your Bounderz, because otherwise they will not survive the inevitable counterattack. The other spell is another effect we've already heard. Squigler casts on a 5 and allows D3 Squig units to run and charge. Use this when you can't quite fit the Squigs under the influence of the Bad Moon. Both spells are quite good and really help with the random Squig movement. Honestly, it's hard to pick one, but I would maybe choose Squigler as it is easier to cast and can affect multiple units, and you'll likely have more than one unit of Bounderz. The Boingrot Bounderz have quite a few synergies throughout the Gloomspite Gitz Battletome. Even in a Destruction Force, they can be solid units as long as they are used in the Squig Rider Battalion. The best build for the Boingrot Bounderz offensively is paired with the Loon Boss on Mangler Squig, and some sneaky Snufflers for 6 attacks per model that wound on 2s on the charge. Take 2 or 3 units of 10 or 15, and they will put out a hurting. Putting them in the Squig Rider Stampede Warscroll Battalion is almost mandatory. I know randomness is in the Squig's nature, but in a competitive setting, it will fail right when you need it. Taking the reroll is imperative. Also, keeping it under the effects of the Bad Moon or Squigler spell is important for them to have the extra run roll. More importantly, giving you the ability to automatically change the run roll to a 6 with at the double. Remember that being able to use at the double is the best way to move the Squigs a reliable distance each turn. Defeating Boingrot Bounderz isn't that difficult considering their defenses. If they have no way to mitigate battle shock, they will fall quickly to ranged attacks, and peppering them with smaller attacks. Be sure to not let the Bounderz charge, as that is when they are most deadly. If you can get the charge off on them, they are losing out on their damage dealing potential. Boingrot Bounderz receive a 4 out of 5. They are pretty fragile, but they are also very cheap and thus easy to spam a lot of. Their random movement is quite a problem in my eyes, but with proper mitigation through running and charging or rerolls, it becomes a much more manageable issue. What do you think of Boingrot Bounderz? What warscrolls would you like me to review next on the channel? Let me know your suggestions, thoughts, and questions in the comments below, and thanks for watching.